Welcome back to Business in Vancouver on Roundhouse Radio 98.3. We are the daily business news program from the Business in Vancouver newspaper and from BIV.com. I'm Haley Wooden. More than 100 people showed up to attend the City of Vancouver's public hearing on the regulation of short-term rentals and the proposal it has on the table regarding short-term rentals and services such as Airbnb. Joining me today is Alex Dagg, Public Policy Director at Airbnb Canada. We're going to discuss the hearing and the future of short-term rentals in the city. It's good to have you back on the program. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So it started Tuesday. It's still ongoing. There's a recess now. It'll pick up again Thursday. What can you tell me about how it's gone so far? What was it like?
Well, it's great to see so many people come out. Public hearings are such a great opportunity for people to express their views directly to city councilors and the mayor who, because they're elected leaders, will be making the decision about what home sharing looks like in Vancouver going forward. And it's highly appropriate for people to come out, participate, and express their views. So there was a lot of interesting points and comments made. And when we continue again on Thursday, it'll be interesting to watch.
Were there any themes emerging in terms of the feedback?
Yeah, a lot of hosts did come out. Airbnb hosts from the community came out to talk about what their experiences were. And I think there was kind of a consistent theme that, home sharing here in Vancouver has really helped help make ends meet for families in a very expensive city. People are struggling with staying in their homes or purchasing their first homes, and they want to be able to use space in their home to short-term rent. It helps with their flexibility and their family situation. So we heard a lot about that and how, there was an interest in Vancouver to be, open enough to sort of continue to allow this to occur.
Mm-hmm. Now, we have proposals from the City of Vancouver on the table. Do you think that out of the comments you've heard, or either from Airbnb's perspective, that we might see changes to those proposals?
Yeah, it's always hard to say, and I don't like to sort of comment or pre-speculate or prejudge, what any city council is going to do. I think, it's their decision. The public process is a way to, have people, like I said, speak directly to them. Ultimately, it's their decision. Hopefully, they're listening to what Vancouver citizens are saying, and we'll take that into consideration. At this point, we think the Vancouver city staff have been pretty thoughtful about their approach and about their work. We think there should be some tweaks to the proposal, but otherwise we think it's generally going in a decent direction.
What tweaks would you like to see?
They're focusing on a primary residence definition, which, we understand the intent of that. We think, given the housing market in Vancouver, that's not or it's a sensible way to look at it. The concern we have is catching people that really do spend a great period of time in Vancouver, living in a home for at least part of the time, making sure that the definition is expansive enough to really allow Vancouver residents to continue to home share. And the other thing we heard a lot last night was from people who have secondary suites in their primary home, wanting to be able to continue to do that makes a huge difference in their life and being able to, continue to live in this city. So those are the kind of two, I'd say, larger concerns that were raised by the community last night.
Mm-hmm. Now, we have the City of Vancouver, like many cities around the world, looking to maybe place regulations on short-term rentals. But you also have then strata councils who have gone and set bylaws and said no short-term rentals, or we allow them, here are the conditions. Has that been an additional conversation Airbnb Canada has had to have?
Yeah, strata councils have the right to set their own bylaws within their buildings, and it was highly appropriate to do that. The fact is, though, that a lot of people living in condos or stratas do want the right to home share, especially the younger generation. You hear it a lot from millennials. They'll say, look, I can only buy my first condo, or I can only afford my rent if I can home share from time to time. And so we do think strata boards need to be open-minded to this idea, bearing in mind that ultimately they have the right to make that decision in their own buildings. We recently just announced this morning the launch of a friendly buildings program in Toronto, in a condo building in Toronto, where they adapted our program there, which is really a transparent way to monitor and come up with specific building rules as to how home sharing is going to be allowed and permitted, but within sort of guardrails within that condo building.
Yeah, it essentially sets ground rules. So it may be what are the requirements from a security standpoint? Does it cost hosts a little bit extra because of the wear and tear of the building, what have you? Do you see that as a model that can be translated to other cities, including Vancouver?
This is a model that we've been piloting in the US, and the agreement to launch it in Toronto is the first one. We are piloting this now in Canada as well, and we for sure think it can be adapted to other cities, because what it does is it gives a Strata board their own personal dashboard, which shows exactly who's home sharing and what the dates are, and can set your own rules, whether you allow pets, that kind of thing. And then there's a revenue share component, which recognizes any kind of wear and tear that could be had on the common areas. So I think it's a really innovative, creative way to look at how we deal with vertical communities and how can we promote home sharing, but in a responsible, transparent way.
Mm-hmm. We talk about sometimes on the show NIMBYism, not in my backyard. We talk about it for high rises, other issues related to real estate. And you hear it sometimes with Airbnb. Has that changed at all? I know Airbnb Canada has launched a public campaign to address some of those issues. There's been a lot of debate. You've engaged with local stakeholders. Has it changed?
It's hard to say if it's changed or not. I mean, it's a healthy tension, and I think it's important to always talk about those issues, but to try to push forward. I mean, the cost of living in major urban cities all over the globe is just becoming, more and more, unaffordable, especially for young people. And I think it's something we need to talk about in terms of densification and how do we live, and, all those challenges that we have. And, so let's keep the dialogue going, but let's sort of be aware, that the world is changing and we need to kind of grow and move with it, but hopefully in a thoughtful way.
In terms of that dialogue, are you working with other communities in the Metro Vancouver area to come up with regulations to address concerns?
Yeah, I mean, we've been sort of more focusing on Vancouver in particular at the moment because of where they are in the regulatory process, but we have conversations with other municipalities all over British Columbia. We love having these conversations and talking about home sharing. We've shared data with many municipalities in this province, and we'll continue to do that because, again, this is about understanding what this is, the sharing economy generally, how people are using it, and how can we look at what are appropriate guardrails and, what works, but, with also sort of allowing it to grow and thrive, which is a really helpful thing for many families.
And when you look, Vancouver's a good test case, obviously an international destination, a lot of tourists coming to Vancouver, further along in the regulatory process, as you said. Based on your other experience or even within Airbnb generally, is it important for a region to have similar regulations so you don't run into, okay, I can't have a home on Airbnb in Vancouver, but I can go to New West and have a home there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think the issue is that every community has different issues and concerns. And so there's not really a one size fits all kind of scenario that really works. And so, you could end up with some different rules, but as long as the rules are kind of simple and easy to follow, that really helps in terms of people understanding, how they can comply. But, concerns in New West may be different than Vancouver, or concerns in North Van may be different. And so I think it's important to kind of have that local conversation about what's appropriate in each community.
Absolutely. Well, Alex, thanks for joining me on the show. Best of luck with the second half of the hearings. Those are quite long evenings, but I know you'll be listening to what's being said, and as will we.
Yeah, thanks very much.
That's Alex Dagg. She's Public Policy Director at Airbnb Canada. You're listening to Business in Vancouver on Roundhouse Radio 98.3. I'm Haley Wooden. Stay with us.